Hey everybody! As you know, we are studying the past tense in English. In this lesson, we're going to focus on two important verbs, said and told. Now, we have many irregular verbs that we need to learn, but we're just starting with two for today. These are pretty useful. When using the past tense in English, the irregular verbs are very important. We have many irregular verbs, and if you want to tell a story, you have to know a lot of them. But just starting out with these two, say is the base form of the verb, and in the past that turns into said. Sometimes the students try to pronounce the vowel sound here the same. And, normally the AY, and the AI will be pronounced in the same way with a long A. So, if this were a normal verb, we would say and said. But unfortunately, this is an irregular verb, and the pronunciation changes between the base form and the past tense. So actually, when we say the past tense, S-A-I-D, the pronunciation is said. Said. So this A-I, it actually sounds a lot more like an E, this short E sound. Said. Say, said. Then the next word that we are studying is tell, and the past tense form is told. So we have say, said, tell, and told. Now, a lot of students come to us with this question. Well, what is the difference between said and told? Because we use both of these words to explain, what is somebody else talking about. So we're going to look at a few examples, and I think if you look carefully, you can probably figure out the rule. Now, we're going to take these examples from the movie Harriet, because that's the story we're studying right now. Do you remember the scene on the bridge? This was a kind of scary action scene. Minty's owner was here. There was other men with guns, and Minty was kind of trapped in the middle of a bridge on top of a river. And here are a few things that happened in the story. Minty's owner got off his horse and told her to come back home. That was one of the sentences we saw in the summary. Later, he told her that her mama and her sister were crying for her. The owner saw that Minty wanted to jump off the bridge, and he said, "Suicide is a sin against God." And he told her, "I've decided not to sell you." When she heard all of these things, she told him, "I'm a be free or die." And this is kind of a really interesting little grammar point. This is a short form of gonna. So basically this means I'm gonna be free or die. This is like a future tense. I'm a be free or die. And then she jumped into the river. So we have about 5 or 6 different examples there. Let's put them in a list. Minty's owner got off his horse and told her to come back home. He told her that her mama and her sister were crying for her. The owner saw that Minty wanted to jump off the bridge. He said, "Suicide is a sin." He told her, "I've decided not to sell you." And she told him, "I'm a be free or die." So we have 5 sentences here, and we have told, 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 told. We have one example of said, which is here. And what I want you to do is look at these examples for a minute and try to figure out what is different about said. What is different about this sentence, about the way that it's organized? I'm not going to tell you the answer right now. Let's look at a few more examples to see if your guess is correct. So these examples come from a different video clip. This is from Harriet's journey. But we still have people talking to each other, and at one point in the story, there's this man that he's driving a little cart, and Harriet is like sitting in the back of the cart, and she's hiding. But at the end of this, he gets out, and he said, "I know you're there. You'd best get out now." So he said those words, and she was really surprised, and she got out. And then the next thing that happens, so she goes to Philadelphia. She finds this other family, this other man to help her. His name is Thomas, and he told her how to cross the border and gave her directions to the city of Philadelphia. So we have a couple more examples there to add to our list. We can add this. He said, "I know you're there. You'd best get out now." And he told her how to cross the border. So I have one more example of said. And the big question is, what's so special about this? What's so special about this that's different from the other ones? Do you see it? Sometimes this helps people. I see in these sentences, there's something that comes after the verb. So we have told her, told her, told her, told him, and told her. And when we have the verb said, we don't have her or him. We just have the verb and it's finished. And that's the important thing to know. So the verb tell always has a person after it. For example, I told him or I told her. And the verb say never has a person after it. So because of this, you can often say the same thing in two different ways. Like you can make the sentence with told and you can make the sentence with said. But you have to change it a little bit because these two verbs have different rules. So I can say, he told her that her mama and her sister were crying for her. And if I want to say said, I would write, he said that her mama and her sister were crying for her. So I would say told her, but in this sentence, I don't say said her, I just say said because say never has a person after it. And then here's another example. I'm marking those just to show that they're correct. Here's another example. She told him, "I'ma be free or die." And I can make the same sentence with said. So I can say, she said, "I'ma be free or die." Both of these sentences are correct. They both have the same meaning. And the main difference is just that here, with told, we have to say the person, that she was talking to. And with said, we can't say that person. All right. So I want to do a little practice. This is just a little kind of a silly story, but in these blanks, you have to choose to put the word said or told. Pause the video and write down your answers for these three blanks. Are you ready to check? Here we go. Yesterday, I had a long talk with my brother who lives in Mexico. He, me. Should we put said or told in here? Me. And the key is me. So I say he, me. If I have a person after the verb, then that has to be told. He told me that my mother and father are doing fine. And in the next sentence, he, me, that they went to the beach last weekend. We're going to say, he told me, because there's a person here after told. And then finally, we wished you were there. He, And this one is different because there's nothing in this space after the verb, so the last one has to be said. We wished you were there, he said. So those are really clear examples of the difference between told and said. Let's practice one more time. This is a little story about a student. Pause your video and write your answers. And when you're ready, start the video again. Okay, ready to check? Last week, Priyanka went to see her counselor at school. I'm having trouble in some of my classes. She, him. So in this case, we have the person after the verb. We have to say, she told him. She told him. Then the counselor looked at Priyanka's grades. You did well last semester. He, You see how this one's different? It should be he said, because there's nothing, no person here after the verb. So, you did well last semester, he said. And yes, Priyanka, This should be Priyanka said, because said finishes the sentence. There's nothing after said. So yes, Priyanka said, I usually get good grades, but this semester I'm having some personal problems. So again, those are really clear examples of the difference between said and told. Now, there's one more useful verb. This is kind of like an extra part of the lesson. When we're talking about, when we're telling stories and people in the stories are talking to each other, a lot of times they ask questions. And so one more useful verb in these situations is the verb ask. When you are telling a story and you want to explain what people say and tell are both very useful. So is the verb ask. So we're going to have say, said, tell, told, and ask, asked. You can see here, this past tense is made with the ed, so you can consider that a regular verb. Now, ask is a flexible verb. You can use it with a person or without a person, and the sentence will always be correct. So ask doesn't have the same strict rules as say and tell. Because of this, you can use ask in two different ways without any changes to the sentence. For example, if I talk about my own life as a teacher, I can say maybe one of my students, he asked about the citizenship class. And this sentence is correct. But I can also say in a little bit different way, he asked me about the citizenship class. So I can put it with a person, I can put it without a person, and both of those are correct. For another example, Nancy asked, why do you give so much homework? True story, true question. But I can also say the same thing in a different way. I can say, Nancy asked the teacher, why do you give so much homework? So I can use this with no person here or with a person after the verb, and all of these examples are correct. And this is different from say and tell because, you know, if you're using say and tell, then you have to use a different verb in these two sentences, with the person and without the person. So I like ask because ask is super easy. We can see some examples of this in the movie as well. So do you remember this scene? Thomas asked Minty if she wanted to walk or ride across the border. So he asked her, and I think she said, you know, I want to walk. I'm going to walk with the Lord. In this part of the movie that you watched recently, this man here is named William, and William asked about her name. He asked where she was from. And who'd you make the journey with? He asked. And she told him that she didn't travel with anybody. And he asked her if she wanted to change her name. And she said yes. So let's put those examples in a list. Thomas asked Harriet if she wanted to walk or ride across the border. And William asked about her name. He asked where she was from. Who'd you make the journey with? He asked. And he asked her if she wanted to change her name. So here we have two examples where asked has a person after it. Thomas asked Harriet, and he asked her. And those are correct, but then these other ones, it just says William asked, and he asked, he asked. Those are also correct. This verb asked can be used in both ways. So that's the end of this presentation. Let's just review for a moment. In this lesson we learned when you are telling a story, 3 words are very useful. Told, said, and asked. And the word told has to have a person after it. The word said can't have a person after it. And the word asked is flexible. You can put a person if you want or not, and it's your choice. That's the end of this presentation. We will practice this a lot more for the rest of the week.